Welcome. This is Uncommon Sense, a podcast presented by the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center. The center is an initiative of the CPA Education Foundation, the charitable arm of the Chartered Professional Accountant profession in Alberta. Our episodes feature conversations with Alberta CPAs sharing their insights on a wide range of timely topics. Alberta CPAs work in every part of the economy and volunteer their time and expertise in virtually every community in Alberta. With each episode, we bring you voices and perspectives that reflect the diverse knowledge and contributions that CPAs bring to our province.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense. I'm Erin Schwartz, Director of the CPA Education Foundation. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to touch on an opportunity that might be of interest to many of our listeners. The CPA Education Foundation is looking for 2 new board members. If you are a CPA who's passionate about learning excellence and enhancing accounting and business education in Alberta, consider this unique opportunity to make a difference for the profession and for accounting education. Our board is composed of dedicated and enthusiastic CPAs, and board membership is a great way to give back to your profession and your community, and it can be a lot of fun too. Although all nominations are encouraged, desirable candidates will possess strong governance skills and experience and have demonstrated capabilities in building relationships with potential donors. Visit cpaalberta.ca/foundation and click on the banner for more information or to nominate yourself. Please note that the nomination period closes on April 27th, 2026. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome back to Uncommon Sense. And returning to talk with me again is Stephen Bergstrom, FCPA, FCMA. Stephen's had a fascinating career over the past few decades, and we heard a little bit about that last time. Today, we're going to jump in and talk about his experiences in post-secondary education and teaching. Thanks for being here, Stephen.
Thanks, Erin, and thanks for having me back.
So, Stephen, we've focused a lot on the military side of things, but also a little bit on the teaching. Curious, over the course of your career, what has your CPA designation meant to you in terms of, fulfillment, career success, pride, anything like that?
I like that you use the word pride. I'm very proud.
I toss that in there because I know you well enough.
I am. I'm very proud of the career that I've had. I'm very proud of our profession. And I really believe the designation opened doors for me.
Yeah.
That it opened a world of possibilities that wouldn't have been there without not just the designation, but the process of getting to the designation, the learning that happened as part of that program to earn the designation.
Yeah.
It is a very respected designation, and it's not just about debits and credits. It's not just about producing financial statements. It's adding value, providing advice, making recommendations, helping clients, helping companies improve. Mm-hmm. And I really feel that designation opened very literally a world of doors for me.
Yeah. Seriously. That's fantastic. And did you ever think when you were going through your schooling, and you mentioned you started off in manufacturing, where did you think you would? I'm guessing the path your career took is not what you were expecting it to, but what did you think? Did you think, okay, I'll go, work in manufacturing and oil and gas and just kind of do that forever? Or did you think maybe there would be all these possibilities?
I honestly had no idea this many possibilities would exist. Yeah. I think like many students, when I was young, I just thought, okay, I'll graduate and get a job.
Right.
And that was probably about as far ahead as I had thought.
Yeah.
I often joke with my students that I've done things backwards. A lot of students will go into public practice while they're working on the CPA program. and then branch off into other careers once they've earned their designation.
Right.
I started in industry and opened my consulting firm later in my career. So had to be different, had to do things a little bit backwards.
Yeah. That's interesting to think of it that way. Now, I mean, your LinkedIn page says that you were retired, which we've talked about a little bit, and have been for 4 years. And like you say, you're able to take advantage of whatever opportunities you feel excited about and pass on the ones that, just aren't right or aren't right now.
Yeah.
What has been something over these past 4 years that has felt more like retirement for you? Has there been, you mentioned maybe doing some travel and things like that. What's that been like?
Well, one of the highlights, as far back as I can remember, I've been fascinated by ancient Egypt. And read a lot about it, learned a lot of the history of ancient Egypt. And so one of the first things that I was able to do on retirement was actually take a trip to Egypt.
Wow.
And see so many of the sites that I had read about and studied. And it was a tremendous experience to stand in front of these things that I had seen a black and white photo of in a book somewhere. And wow, now I'm actually standing in front of it.
Yeah, cool. So go and kind of fulfill that, big dream. And then you were kind of like, okay, now go home. That was great. Get back to work.
Yeah. Back home, let's pick up a couple of courses and plan what the next big adventure is going to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. So any thoughts to share with people who are maybe currently in a similar boat where they're contemplating or preparing for retirement or easing off or a transition of some kind? What would you say to them?
I've had a few people comment to me over the time that I've been so-called retired. I've had some people say that I am their role model, that what I'm doing is exactly what I'd like to do. This sounds great. I've had other people say, you know what, I just can't ever see myself retiring. I can't see myself slowing down. Everybody's retirement, just like everybody's career, looks different.
Yeah.
And it's very much an individual choice, very much an individual decision. What do you want your retirement to be like? And my advice would be, don't let anybody tell you what that is.
Yeah.
What works for myself might not work for you.
Right.
Everybody should decide for themselves. Am I ready to slow down? Do I want to keep going? Mm-hmm. Some people really miss the day-to-day routine. Mm-hmm. My father was of the generation when you turn 65, you retire. That's it.
Yeah.
Full stop.
You work up until then, and then after that, it's
65.
cold turkey, essentially.
Exactly.
Fully done.
65 plus 1 day, that's it. We're done.
Yeah.
And he just about went stir crazy the first few months of retirement because he didn't know what to do with himself.
Yeah.
It looks different for each individual. Mm-hmm. What I'd suggest for those people at the start of their career is give some thought to what you want it to look like.
Yeah.
Because that can help you with the decisions you make along the way.
Right.
If you decide you want to retire early, well, start saving money away, get jobs with companies that have pension plans or RRSP plans. If you see yourself as being more I'm going to work until I'm in my 80s, that's fine. That gives you a little more flexibility to spend now. But have a thought in mind throughout your career, what direction you want to go.
Right. Yeah. And is this what you were thinking? Or has there been a lot of figuring out over the past 4 years, like, ooh, what is this going to look like?
It really is shaping up pretty much exactly
Yeah.
how I envisioned it, how I wanted it to be. There are some individual days where, there's some figuring, well, do I want to do the grocery shopping today or should I do it tomorrow?
Big decisions.
Major decisions. No, it's really shaping up very much the way I had envisioned. Getting in some travel, doing some part-time work here and there.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned it before, passion projects, things that I feel very strongly about. Now I have the opportunity to do things that I feel passionate about, do things that give back to the profession.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any passion projects that you would say fall outside of your work with the profession? I'm curious because I know a lot about what you do for the profession. Again, we're very grateful. And of course, why wouldn't you want to work with us? We're great.
Absolutely.
But is there anything that hobbies or other things that you've been working on, or is it all pretty much CPA related?
Vast majority is CPA related.
Yeah.
My fiance's parents own a small inn on Salt Spring Island.
Yeah.
So a recurring summer project is going out there to lend a hand with running the inn for them.
Yeah. That's awesome. And again, having the flexibility that can just be part of your reality, right?
Absolutely.
That's very cool. Thank you for sharing. So let's turn now to the subject of post-secondary accounting education. Like I mentioned earlier, just like seems like everything else in the world, education is going through a lot of changes and being reshaped by so many factors and forces these days. AI and all the big changes there, budget pressures on post-secondary institutions, all that. From where you sit, what would you say have been the biggest changes in accounting education over the past, 5-6 years or so?
Everybody talks about the impact of technology, and it's kind of an obvious thing to say, but by far it probably is the single biggest impact on the profession from the educational standpoint.
Yeah.
The evolution of things like data analytics, artificial intelligence, the impact that those are having on the profession is huge. Mm-hmm. Even things, and it even filters down to the things we do in the classroom, the things that are available to students in the classroom.
Right.
Not all that long ago, you would be going from classroom to classroom with a backpack full of these great big thick textbooks, trying to lug 80 pounds of textbooks from one classroom to another. Now, vast majority of the students access the textbook on their laptop.
Right.
So they're bringing one laptop to class, flip it open, and they just open whichever textbook is applicable to that classroom. Surprisingly, there are still a number of students who prefer an actual physical textbook.
Right.
But the use of e-textbooks is far more common. So much of the material that's available to the students, practice questions, practice quizzes, and some of the publishers are now even coming out with artificial intelligence tutors that the students can interact with and get help on different areas of the subject material that they're struggling with.
Yeah.
I think back to my university days when you'd open the front cover of the textbook and there would be some check figures for, and not for all the problems, just for the even-numbered ones. But the resources that are available for the students these days is really incredible. Mm-hmm. There's also an impact on what we teach.
Yeah.
Because the accounting profession itself has changed so much. Some of the things that were so important to teach 15, 20 years ago have now been automated, and instead of spending an hour teaching the students about it, you might mention it in passing as part of a lecture.
Right. Yeah.
One that leaps to mind is bank reconciliations. I remember, and this was actually not terribly long ago, reading part of the chapter of the textbook that describes, well, you get a box in the mail, and the box is full of all the old canceled checks, and you have a copy of your bank statement, and somebody has to go through and compare the bank statement to the GL, and, yep, this one's cleared. Nope, this one hasn't. And having read that in the textbook, I went into my class the next day and I said, okay, quick show of hands, who here has actually written a check?
Yeah.
And I think 2 students out of 40 put their hands up. And one of those was a little tentative.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the nature of business has changed so much. What we're teaching in many ways has changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you find with all those changes, do you see significant changes in the students themselves as well, with their expectations or their learning styles or kind of how they're showing up?
In many ways, students haven't changed. I will sometimes joke with my students in class about something that I used to do when I was a student. And I see these knowing nods and smiles and, okay, he gets it.
Yeah.
A lot of my colleagues talk about the distractions in class, students picking up their cell phones or multitasking on their laptop during a class. In fairness, we did the same thing. It's just we passed notes back and forth instead of texting each other. But the distractions were there. It's just a slightly different kind of distraction.
Yeah.
It's perhaps a little easier to be distracted these days because the instant notification of emails, the instant notification of texts, when the instructor isn't all that interesting, it's much easier to hop on the internet and watch a YouTube video or check your email. So in some of those respects, I see some differences, but overall, I don't see an awful lot of changes in the students. And obviously, I enjoy being with the students. Otherwise, I wouldn't still be doing it after all these years.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. What about in terms of when you're talking to students about their career paths? Have you noticed any changes in recent years in terms of maybe what they're looking for or kind of their thoughts on their designation, their career path, that kind of thing?
One thing I do notice is a leeriness about the impact of artificial intelligence on the profession. And automation in general as well. I do have a lot of students asking me, well, are there still going to be jobs for us when we graduate? I've done networking events. I've done open houses where parents of prospective students are coming and saying, why would I want my kid to become an accountant? I hear accounting's dying. It's being taken over by artificial intelligence. And back in the fall, I went to a PD session on artificial intelligence, and credit to Vince Fung for this particular quote, but what he said at this session really resonated with me. He said, artificial intelligence is not going to take your job. The person who knows how to use artificial intelligence well is going to take your job.
Yeah.
And in many ways, I see the rise of automation, I see the rise of artificial intelligence as just another evolution of the accounting profession.
Right.
Yes, some of those routine, day-to-day transaction-based jobs are going away. A lot of the data entry, a lot of the accounts payable roles, where somebody would work for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, doing nothing but entering it.
Yeah.
Invoice after invoice of a huge stack. Now all that's coming through electronically and it's processed automatically. Some of those jobs, yes, are going away.
Right.
But the opportunity with automation, with artificial intelligence, is it has the potential to open up free time for accountants. Mm-hmm. And we can spend our time doing analysis, doing interpretation, providing advice, rather than recording routine transactions. Mm-hmm. Which to me is a lot more fun than sitting there entering a whole stack of invoices.
Yeah.
So I don't, and I've often said this to students, and again, credit to Vince. I've used his quote a number of times in the classroom.
Yeah.
AI is a tool. Yes, the accounting profession is changing, it's evolving, but I still see tremendous potential, tremendous opportunity for students when they graduate.
Yeah.
It's just different opportunities than maybe they were 15 or 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's not taking the jobs, it's changing the jobs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we talk, though, about a lot of the ticking and bopping is no longer needed, it's the storytelling, the analysis. Historically, we would have seen, the ticking and bopping as the stepping stone of, when you're first entering into, the workforce, you're doing those types of tasks before you're then able to get to the analysis. So is there a different type of task happening at that level before they move on to that? Or are we typically getting students fresh out of, university or fresh with their designation already jumping into those higher level roles where they're doing analysis, giving advice, that kind of thing?
Well, and I think that this is one area where the post-secondaries are moving towards, mm-hmm. and an area that post-secondaries can address. It's no longer important to focus on getting the students ready for those entry-level jobs, mm-hmm. because those entry-level jobs in many cases are now automated.
Yeah.
The students need to understand what's happening inside the computer. They need to understand the debits and credits and why we do some of the things that we do. But it's also important to equip them with the skills, as you said, to leave post-secondary, enter the workforce at a more analytical level, mm-hmm. at a level where they can begin providing some of that advice, rather than just doing the ticking and bopping and gradually working their way to that higher level. Yeah.
Fascinating. I know that in addition to being a classroom instructor, you have also been a mentor for students and CPA candidates. Do you have any thoughts on the value to students of seeking out and learning from mentors?
My career got off to a bit of a rough start. I didn't really have a plan for my career.
Yeah.
Like a lot of students, I thought, okay, I'll graduate and get a job, full stop. And my first couple of jobs, not that they were bad by any means, but very limiting, very clock-based, I guess, for want of a better way to describe it. I'm here to work from 9 till 5, and then the rest of the day is my own.
Yeah.
And didn't really have a good sense of direction, didn't really have a good sense of where I wanted my career to go. And then I ended up working with one particular boss who very much took me under his wing. It was actually the same one who gave me that advice, if you make a mistake, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
He very much took it upon himself to train me, not just in what my day-to-day duties were, but why we were doing them, what the logic was behind it, how he made his decisions. He really took on the role of a mentor.
Yeah.
And I can't overstate the impact that had on my career. It skyrocketed from there.
Yeah.
What I found I really needed was that guidance of somebody to give me the benefit of their experience, give me the benefit of their wisdom.
Yeah.
And as a result, I can't say enough about finding a mentor. Doesn't even necessarily, in my case, it was my immediate boss.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be somebody that you're working with or directly report to. It can be a family member or somebody that you connect with at a networking event even.
Right.
But my advice to young people starting off their career is find a mentor.
Yeah.
Get the benefit of their experience. I had a similar situation when I was at your stage in your career. Here's what I did. Don't do that. Here's what I would recommend you do instead.
Yeah.
There's those of us who have a little bit of gray in our hair have we've earned that gray in our hair. And a lot of us are very eager to share some of that wisdom, share some of our experience, help young people in their careers.
Yeah.
I encourage, find yourself a mentor.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Thank you. And I mean, through this podcast and other initiatives from the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center, we try to give snippets, right? I think someone can come and listen to our guests here and get some of their wisdom and all that. So hopefully there's little pieces that kind of help them out. But I think that value of having a connection with someone to get that mentorship can really take someone, like you say, it can really accelerate or take you to that next level.
Absolutely.
So thank you. Stephen, from your view, how can the CPA profession itself support post-secondary accounting education through all these changes?
Well, one of the initiatives that I'm involved in is the CPA Education Foundation Academic Advisory Committee. And what we're trying to do is connect the profession with the post-secondary institutions. The committee has a representative from each one of the post-secondary institutions in the province that feed into the CPA Western School of Business. And we're trying to build a bridge between the post-secondary institutions and the profession itself. The profession is very tied into what's happening in industry, what's happening in the firms, what's happening in the economy. The post-secondaries are very tied into the developments in educational materials, the student body, what are students interested in, what are students concerned with. Yeah. And so this committee is trying to build the bridge between those two bodies of knowledge and help the post-secondaries understand a little bit better what are some of the shifts in business, what are some of the growing trends in the economy, what are some of the skills that students need to be equipped with in order to flow seamlessly into the profession.
Yeah, thank you. One final question for you today, Stephen. What has been the greatest personal rewards you have gained from a successful career?
Well, one thing I tell all my students at the end of every semester, I tell all my candidates at the end of a workshop, the highlight of every year for me is the CPA convocation ceremonies. I am always front row center in the audience at the convocation ceremonies, and I am quite possibly the proudest parent in the entire room, because most of the parents there have one, maybe two candidates going across the stage getting their designation. I've got 50 or 60 going across the stage. It very much is. It's a proud parent moment for me.
Yeah.
They've done the hard work. They did the studying. They did the learning. They're the ones who wrote the exams. But I feel with every candidate that goes across the stage, there's a little piece of me there that opened the door for them and helped them get through that door.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for spending this time talking with me. Hearing your insights and reflections and your stories are always fascinating. And I'm just really pleased to have you on as a guest. Thank you for being here today, and of course for all of the work that you do for the profession and the CPA Education Foundation specifically. And I'm sure we'll continue the conversation and we'll see what else you achieve during your so-called retirement.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Erin.
The Uncommon Sense podcast is presented by the CPA Education Foundation and funded by the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center. The Knowledge Center was created through a generous donation by the late Brian Heshe. Brian was a distinguished Albertan, business leader, CPA, educator, and community builder. His generosity and commitment to education underpinned his good works across Alberta throughout his lifetime. The opinions expressed on Uncommon Sense do not necessarily reflect the views of the CPA Education Foundation. We would like to acknowledge that CPA Education Foundation offices are situated on the traditional Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 territories and Métis Nation homeland. The Foundation acknowledges that we reside on traditional and ancestral territories of many Indigenous, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Their histories and culture influence our community to this day. The Foundation is committed to helping build a province where Indigenous people and their voices and experiences are heard, valued, respected, and celebrated. Technical and recording services for this podcast provided by Wolf Willow Studios in Edmonton. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about us. If you have any comments about the podcast, write to us at cpaef@cpaalberta.ca. To learn more about the CPA Education Foundation and the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center, visit cpaalberta.ca/foundation. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search for the CPA Education Foundation.